the Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Hello and welcome back to the show. We are diving deep into the intersection of leadership, AI, and mindfulness. Our guest today is someone who's been at the forefront of digital transformation and customer success. Should be a great conversation. I'm Steven Skash here again with Mike Lusky. We are live. If you have questions or comments, send them along. Mike, introduce our special guest today.
Sounds awesome, Steven. Thank you once again, and welcome also to our followers. Today we have really an incredibly inspiring guest, Ram Ganesan. Ram is a serial entrepreneur and co-founder of Kaboom AI. With over 2 decades of experience in the tech industry, Ram's journey is one of a number of different things: innovation, leadership, a passion for transforming how businesses connect with customers. From his role as the global head of digital experience at Encora to the founding and the successful exit of Söoryen Technologies, Ram has consistently been at the forefront of digital transformation and customer success. His work is a testament to his ability to craft solutions that drive value across the entire business ecosystem. And at Kaboom AI, Ram is tackling one of today's most pressing business challenges, which I know many of our listeners are going to want to hear. It's the challenge of bridging the gap between sales, operations, delivery, and finance. And he's doing this by leveraging AI to enhance customer relationships. What makes Ram's approach truly special is his emphasis on mindfulness in leadership, which we're going to really dive into today. Today, we'll explore how Ram integrates mindfulness to foster creativity, innovation, and build a culture of empathy and purpose within his teams, which we know many organizations sometimes struggle with that. So today you'll walk away with some very practical strategies on how to incorporate mindfulness into your own lives and business to ultimately improve the balance between culture, productivity, and overall success. So with that, Ram, we're thrilled to have you on the show today. Welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast.
Thank you, Stephen and Mike. And Mike, thank you for that very flattering introduction. My mom would be very proud to hear all of that. I think
that's how we like it. Pass the mom test.
Framing that, and I am thoroughly flattered. And you're very kind with your depiction. I think under the hood, it's a little bit clunky and messy out there. Always. With Ram and his story, but I'll take that. But I really am excited and happy to be here as part of this Bliss Business Podcast. The topic of, I would say, mindfulness and many associated emotions that go with it, or states of being, if you will, are very near and dear to me, right? And that's what led me to start my first business and then continue that journey with Encora, and now freshly again, I would say, with Kaboom AI.
Ram, let's kick things off a little by talking about that journey. I know if you're like most entrepreneurs, you probably had some of those key moments that led you on this journey to start Kaboom. Like, how did the concept of Kaboom start to come together for you?
For Kaboom, I had reached an inflection point with our journey at Söoryen and Encora, right? So Söoryen was independently run by me and our team from 2012 to 2018, roughly. And then we hit some charts out there, Deloitte Fast 500, Inc. 500, et cetera. Started getting a lot of inbound action for investments, buyouts, et cetera. We generally said, okay, we're going to keep moving along. We were interested in growing it ourselves. But then we really found a great partner with Indicom Digital, which is now Encora. In 2018, we joined hands with them. And I think the genesis of all the entrepreneurship, right, for both Söoryen and Kaboom is, I would say, ultimately it's a pursuit of purpose and happiness in life, right? And you have to be very intentful about it, because entrepreneurship, especially in the 0 to 1 phase, is hard. And it can be very anxiety inducing, but it's also thoroughly satisfying at the end of the day, if you don't measure it just on the monetary side of the equation. And granted that, the previous story with Söoryen and Encora was very successful for us and the team. And I'm taking a lot of those learnings now to start Kaboom AI. At the end of the day, it was a desire to build something from scratch again, the entrepreneurial itch, the proverbial entrepreneurial itch, if you will. And, working at Encora, it had grown, and rightfully so, into, I would say, a larger, more formal corporate machine, if you will, right? And I think it was time for me to move on. There were some other signals from life and the universe that happened at the same time on the personal side. With me hitting an age milestone, of 20 years, I became 20 years old, and I'm just kidding. Passing away of my father, my daughter's graduation from college, and coincidentally, my daughter is one of the co-founders of Kaboom AI, right? And all of that converged into, I would say, a very clear signal that it's time to do the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. But do it with a lot of the learnings and the lessons from and the principles and the values. That's the word that was escaping me, that we've kind of formulated and gathered and doubled down on over the years with Söoryen, right? And a lot of it is essentially centered on the human pursuit of happiness, right? And we pursue happiness in many different ways. And entrepreneurship is genuinely a tool for that, because you can do it in a very independent manner, but you have to be intentful about it. And a lot of it is mindful about what we do.
I want to underline that. You have to be intentful about that, right? That's what you were bringing up earlier too.
Surely.
Yeah, you can chase those monetary KPIs, and that's where your intent sometimes gets focused, right?
Correct.
But you have that higher purpose intent. Talk about that a little bit. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, and it's so many a times I've had situations where we've had emotional conversations with employees, right? And sometimes they have an issue with a client, with a company, or with a particular incident, etc., right? And the first and foremost question I would always ask is that, are you happy with what you're doing here? And what can I do to make you happy? Because my sole and primary purpose here is to make my customers, my employees, and myself happy here, right? And if not, everybody might not work out. You have to take your wins and losses. But if you're not trying for that, right, in a very purposeful manner, you fail, right? And for me, the biggest marker is that, right? Like if somebody says that I have not been genuine in that pursuit, then I failed as an entrepreneur or as a businessman or as a person in general, right? The monetary success, I feel, is a derivative outcome of that. And of course, that leads to additional, I would say, parameters of quote unquote happiness. But the quote in the key feeling and purpose down below is an intentful pursuit of that emotion. And then when you do that on a day-to-day basis, right, you just become very genuine and purposeful about it. And I think that radiates, right? It radiates to your work. It radiates to your work culture. It radiates to the people that you interact with, and both, within the company and outside the company, and your clients, etc. And that's what I've seen ultimately lead to our long-term success.
I think for our listeners, this is something we talk about a lot, is just focusing on that employee well-being. And this is a move in consciousness. It's a shift for going from, we've had sort of that traditional modern consciousness where you're focusing, it's the machine, right? And it's all about the money and everything. And then it moves up to this postmodern consciousness where you start taking in, my colleagues, hey, let's all, kind of give a little bit of balance and fairness to everyone. But then the real next shift is that wholeness, that approach to thinking about the whole human being at work. So I love that you're talking about that. And that's just something, we've talked about a lot. I want to talk a little bit about, now that you're kind of getting into generative AI and stuff with Kaboom, it's just a fascinating area for me to work in, and I'm sure for you too. Where do you see kind of things going in the next 5 and 10 years, particularly with Kaboom AI? Kind of maybe give a little explanation of what Kaboom AI is and where you see it going and where its place in the world is. I know we've talked about companies inviting AI almost as a team member into your mix, and you have to kind of change how you think about things like that. Yeah, talk a little bit about that if you could.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to just close out one final point there, right? When you mention money, right, it's not like we're running a profitable or for-profit business, right? Money is the oil that keeps the car going, but it's not the car in itself. And it's not the life force that propels the car forward, right? Mm. It's the key ingredient that provides the energy, if you will. And, so we'll work with that construct in mind. But with Kaboom AI, what our goal is for our customers to find gold in their backyard, right? It's yet another AI sales platform play. But what we feel is that we've touched upon a very unique space of being able to enhance, defend, and grow your existing relationships, be that a company, an account, or a person, right? And we built a huge feature set that takes structured and unstructured data. And we're living in a data deluge environment, right? We're all overwhelmed with data. 2 decades ago, we were all data starved. Now it's just the exact opposite. There's data coming from all parts of our ecosystem here. And what we're doing is trying to make sense of structured and unstructured data. Generative AI helps more on the unstructured side, but being able to converge that on a cloud-enabled platform at scale for you to be able to take care of not just a few of your existing relationships, but all of your existing relationships in a prioritized, meaningful manner, which gives you the ability to create revenue opportunities out of your existing customer pool. Many a times what happens is that when an account is closed, sales kind of moves on, gives it over to operations or delivery, and there is a disconnect, right? Sales comes in from time to time and there's an opportunity or whatever. But what is the true essence of that commercial construct? It's the relationship, right? The relationship needs a lot more TLC. You need to understand and keep abreast of competition. You need to understand and keep abreast of competitors that the client might be facing, industry events and things like that. And then also things such as personnel movement, or you might have just added a new capability within your quiver of arrows, right? Like you were an agency doing marketing and maybe now you're doing videos or you're doing brand management, right? And you want to showcase those capabilities that might be run by different solution teams within your company. So there's white space that might be need to. So doing that in a very meaningful and structured manner, we feel will unlock a lot more streams of revenue within an existing account. So that's what Kaboom AI is all about.
Interesting. So I want to dig into that a little bit more, Ram, because it seems like the need for companies or the human need has for what you just described has always been there. Now maybe the technology is caught up to enable that. So I want to maybe dig in a little bit more into, I've got maybe a 2-part question for you. The first part just being essentially like, what made this a key area for you? Like why care so much, right? Because I think a lot of companies sometimes get stuck in the net new customer race to try to generate revenue, right? And they're so focused on the monetary side.
The chase, it's so much more fun, right? It's so much more exciting, right? Yeah. Everybody wants to direct energy and focus towards that. You need to do that. It's not like you need to stop doing it, but people almost don't do that with their existing accounts, right? It becomes kind of like chopped liver. unless the customer is either too noisy or they have some new commercial opportunities. And you can't be doing that. You have to be very intentful and focused on the relationship at the company level, at the account level, and also the people that every person in your team interacts with. And being able to do that so the genesis, why did the idea of Kaboom come to me, right? Or to us, right? There were two, I would say. One was a signal from the universe, and one was, I would say, an internal voice that spoke to me in particular, right? So the signal from the universe was, we were doing some research on product ideas, right? So one of our co-founders, as I mentioned before, was researching the CMO and the head of sales space for data platforms. We were actually looking to build a data platform like everybody else a couple of years ago, right? And the feedback that we got back from them was that, hey, there's Salesforce and HubSpot and Microsoft Dynamics and all these CRMs out there, but they, first of all, are very expensive to maintain. We have to do a lot of data entry, and they don't do a good job of managing my existing relationships. Why don't you guys work on that, right? So she comes back to me and says that, is this a real problem? I'm saying that this is a lived experience for me, right? You know, what is happening is I am unlocking, and this is literally like some light bulb went off during the pandemic for us. And we took 30 of our existing accounts in my previous role, and we said, what do we do here with that, right? And then we applied some very specific, I would say, manual actions about it, right? So the lived experience, and that helped move the needle. So the light bulb just went off in me saying that, hey, this is a lived experience, and let's look at account management platforms out there with AI. Are they trying to solve this? And the answer was that there's a lot of platforms that are just adding on AI, but they're not building AI from the ground up for existing relationships. And that's the genesis of Kaboom for you.
And then maybe kind of connecting it to empathy, right? So how does that, tie to being empathetic, I guess, both from the company's side, but even on the customer's side that they serve?
Yeah. So, this is a feature in Kaboom that we're building. It's not yet live. It's called Touch Base, right? But how many times have you recalled, like, oh, I didn't call Joe for the last 6 months, and then you suddenly pick up the phone and call them, right? And Joe is potentially, let's say in this situation, a customer, and they're like, hey, Joe, what's going on? What's this thing? Sometimes it's like, oh, perfect timing, Mike. I was just thinking about you, and you're like, why did I not keep in touch with Joe for 6 months, right? And sometimes it has happened to me many a times where I had a client who was basically on autopilot, and we were thinking there's nothing going on there. And then slowly we felt that they were becoming more distant. And then we realized that others were speaking to them and meeting them in person and all of that. So the cadence, right? So what it made me realize is that there's a human component to all these commercial transactions, right? So again, while we're building sales AI, our goal is to enable the salesperson, not automate them out of their job, right? Many AI platforms tend to go towards that direction, like we'll automate the function. Our goal is to make this salesperson more proactive and productive because they're staying on top of their relationships.
So Ram, walk me through that just a little bit. Say I'm, pick, I don't know, one of the verticals or industries you're really, this product would really work for. And just walk me through, like, real briefly, like, I'm that salesperson and here's my week and how I'm going through things with Kaboom.
So, first of all, Kaboom will monitor all your engagements, right? So it's integrated with your calendar and your email. And say you have a client meeting coming up, right? It'll send you a meeting prep sheet, right? You're meeting with XYZ in 45 minutes. These are the engagements that you'll have the basic summary, but that's where the Gen AI comes in. These are the talking points. This is the potential points of discussion that you need to press on, etc. And oh, by the way, it's Mike went on a ski trip last week. Ask about that, right? Mm-hmm. it's somebody else's birthday, right? Wish them a happy birthday, etc. Right? So whatever data points we can gather, of course, we cannot conjure the data out of thin air, but we're working with market data, with internal company data that you've entered, and then most importantly, your own engagements. So it's looking at your email and your calendar and prepping you for the meeting. Now, once you're done with that meeting, right, you're going to get a meeting summary as well as the detailed meeting recording, etc. If it's a Zoom call or if it's an in-person meeting, what we'll do is we'll ping you after the meeting saying that, hey, how did that meeting go? Can you give me a quick voiceover in terms of what the action items from the meeting are? We'll record that, and again, we'll summarize it in text, and we'll send it back to you as a set of action items, right? So this framework in Kaboom is what is called as nudges, right? So it's an assistant that's nudging you to action, right? Now, that's one set of functions that we have. Another thing that we are looking at is building this touch base function, which is essentially keeping you honest on your cadence of touching base with people, right? So, for example, Mike might be on a weekly touch base schedule for me. Stephen might be a bi-weekly. Tulio might be a monthly.
This is something I'm awful at.
Everybody is awful at that, right? It's such an easy thing to do, but the problem is that nobody has the discipline. You can put these names in a spreadsheet, but the problem is that it's like a moving bar, right? Like, suddenly you might become a weekly cadence and Tulio might become a quarterly cadence or whatever else, right? And we need an AI to be able to watch that, right? So what we do is we look at your contact list and your engagement level and your priority of them, and we set up, basically we set up what is called as a pool of contacts. So you have your master contact list, which might be 1,000 people. Then the pool of contacts will be, let's say, 500 people, but then we take your capacity, and your capacity is maybe 50 to 80 people a month. That's it. The human capacity is not more than that, right? And we think that we have 5,000 people. So this is something that we will be very specifically solving for, and very soon, right? This is very much in the works in the dev stream right now, and we hope to release that feature imminently.
Yeah, I think if I was talking about like your higher purpose, so we do a lot of marketing where we're trying to bring out people's purpose. I really see this higher purpose of connection with people, with humans at a much deeper level. It's something we talk about so much that we try to really build, especially on our advertising side. We are constantly looking for, how can we build that connection with people? And so this is almost takes like from what we're doing advertising wise, trying to build that connection, hand it off. And now you've got the other side of that, continuing that, building that stronger connection. So I think that's just huge. And I love that these are the ways we can use kind of that AI, the generative AI, in just more creative ways than we have in the past. So apparently we've got our most views on X right now. So we're going to give some love out to the Twitter folks there, and as well as Facebook. And we promised talking about some mindfulness stuff. So let's dive into some mindfulness and leadership here. I know it's a big part of Ram, how you lead and manage your teams. Can you walk us through how mindfulness has influenced your leadership style, especially environments like tech startups and things were moving fast and stuff?
Yeah, one of the best compliments that I got from a longtime coworker of mine is that what he likes about me is that I'm so human and I'm kind of like dysfunctional. And he said that I'm like the Indian version of Michael Scott, right, from The Office. So
that's a great show. I'm gonna watch that show.
Yeah, it was such a genuine compliment I felt, right? Like, because Michael Scott is a goofball, right? But what we love about him is that he's very there's no facade, right? He's human, he's messed up, he's funny, and he's also a businessman, if you will, right? And in many ways, that's how I think I want everybody at Kaboom or at any businesses that I work in to function. I want people to be themselves, not an office version of themselves, if you will, or a work version of themselves. They should be comfortable in their shoes doing that, and the environment should allow them to be like that, right? And that comes from everything, right? You might be having a down day, and you should be able to say that, hey, I don't feel up to it today, and you might not see me at my Friday best here, if you will. But at the same time, somebody might be on fire. You want to acknowledge that. You want to give wind to their sail, and so on and so forth. And being able to collectively move the needle together is what I would want to say is my focus as a leader. And my evolution as a leader, especially as I'm growing older, is to take opinions of the younger generation, and they are very, very different, but they're also very progressive in terms of their thinking and the way they approach business. And their intent is also to build a beautiful company, just like myself, right? So every opinion from every corner of the company is something that I would want to ideally take in and give it its due diligence before we make decisions. That doesn't mean that we'll have analysis paralysis for everything, but the goal is that we have that equality of opinion and values across the board for the team.
So Ram, a question for you, because I was kind of thinking, and I think this is something that our followers would really benefit from, is maybe your practical advice. And so I want to dig into essentially the how part of building, the relationship and creating a mindful connection. Because like we talked about with Kaboom, you might get these nudges or the data is telling you, X or Y. But then comes the action, right? So how do you ensure that the touch points that are then indicated or are supported by the AI, how do you ensure that they still, maintain that human mindful connection?
Correct.
What
So
do you do?
you have health scores in Kaboom, right? So, if you're ignoring your nudges and you're not acting on them, and you will see a drop in the health score of that particular account, right? And obviously there's other data points. Sometimes the account might still be growing, and we'll obviously give due credit for that, right? But the idea is that you take these nudges and you interact with them, right? If one kind of nudge is not working, I'm pretty sure something else will work for you. We are building a whole nudge ecosystem and hopefully eventually a nudge marketplace in the future, right? So being able to respond to the nudges, right? First of all, like engaging with it. And we are trying to make that very easy. You don't have to log into Kaboom to do that. The nudges come to you. So it comes to you on Slack or on email, or for that matter, on text message, and eventually a push notification with a mobile version of Kaboom. But the idea is that it is a frictionless sort of interaction for you to take the nudge and then act on it and create more nudges, right? So, and you move the needle forward, which will result in better customer engagement, more positive sentiments. So you'll get a lot more chatter on your email from the customer that will show that, okay, the engagement level has increased, and we'll measure that back. And all of these can be fed back into your health score to show that you're doing the right things. The same way, if you don't do it and you keep ignoring not just the nudges, but not performing the actions to build and foster the relationship, your health score will drop, right? And you don't want that, right? And that's something that you want to collectively act on as a team. It's not just the account executive's role, but it's company, senior management, operations, delivery, finance, customer success. Everybody has a role to play in it. And we map that entire relationship between your account and your delivery team.
And I would think, regardless if it's a card, a call, or an email, the element of it being unexpected, I think, would probably move the needle radically, right? Than something that would just be, considered rote or standard.
Yeah, I mean, what I realize is that what seems radical to me here is also just I mentioned touching base, right? Everybody's awful at it, and it's not because you want to be awful at it. It's just that it's a tough problem to solve, right? And this is exactly where AI can come in, right? And it can bring to you a set of good habits, which will eventually make you outperform and ergo be radical, if you will, right? Like, oh, Ram's on top of the game. He's always in touch with me at the right level, right? Like somebody might need TLC every week, somebody might need TLC every quarter, etc. And we're trying to figure that out, right? And that's the algorithm. And this will get better and better as more and more data gets fed into the Kaboom platform.
Yeah. One other thought just was also occurring to me is with the Kaboom employee base, or for companies that are using Kaboom, they're helping you make you a better human in a way, right? And I love this statistic that I found and sort of prep for this show from the Harvard Business Review, just saying that 89% of employees believe that mindfulness helps them be better at their jobs, but also be better people. And I would think that as an employee, I would want to work for an organization like that, right? So I would think it would not only benefit retention, but even just it's a company that you want to stay with, right? So it's sort of like a very astute way of helping an organization to improve its employees, but also help retain, its best employees. So I certainly wish you, a lot of success, and I'm very curious to see, probably retention rates will even increase with the companies that are using your software.
Yes, we're very confident of that, right? As I mentioned, this comes from some very hard market research as well as a lived experience, right? I think the key thing is to get the user experience right, and that's what we're working on right now. And we like what we are building out there and putting it in the hands of our early launch customers. We're getting some positive feedback. Of course, a lot of critical feedback. We don't expect to be perfect out of the gate. But I think the key thing, as you mentioned, right, is to build that feedback loop of intention and mindfulness in what we're doing here, right? So much so, it helps us make better people. One of the, in fact, interesting things is that a couple of people, when I spoke about the features of Kaboom, they said, I don't need that for sales. I need that in life, right? And
right.
There are some tools out there that try to solve this for life, like managing your contacts or managing your follow-ups or your network, etc. Because right now in this age of social media, we have 5,000 friends on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever, right? And everybody's racking up followers. But who are your meaningful relationships, and how do you stay in a meaningful cadence of contact with them, and how do you go about it, right? And that should not be a manual process, right? I think there is a gap in the market for AI to be able to do that better for you, so that you're not just liking somebody's LinkedIn post or Facebook or Twitter or wherever else, right? Or TikTok video, etc. Right. But I think your meaningful relationships at the tier it should be, right? It could be a very close friend or family member, or it could be somebody that you talk to once a month, but ensure that they don't slip out of your contact list just because you got busy doing other things.
Yeah. Take the thoughts out of my mind, right? Not the person that's just liking your photos or commenting the most on your posts, for sure. Yeah.
Mike had mentioned, you guys talked a little bit about the retention rate. This is one of those, just KPIs that kind of shows how well you're doing as a company, maybe from, an empathetic standpoint, how you're managing the relationship with your colleagues. What I like when you talked in Kaboom is you're talking about that health score, which sometimes it's elusive to find data that ties into sort of empathy or connection kind of data. And that's really something we need more of kind of in the world, because then we can, not only can we optimize toward it as people, but like the AI that's coming online, it's like, hey, you got to give it that good kind of data that it can also optimize and have you have that be kind of the northern light for it. Talk a little bit again about that health score, because I'm really interested in always diving into these KPIs when I kind of see different ones out there that relate to something that might be connection
by the
based.
way, health scores is not a Kaboom innovation, right? I think TouchBase will be when it's fully built. I think health scores are done by many CRMs out there, and they tend to be a very contentious point, right? Because as the account executive, I don't want to be docked on health scores and management weighing my performance as a sales or an account relationship person. So what we've done is we've built a fully configurable but AI-driven health score, right? So it's going to be you can move the dial on things like engagement that you get on email, like in terms of sentiments and things like that in conversation. In terms of meeting frequency, are you meeting them at the frequency that you said you will meet them, right? If you said it's 1 month, then keep up with that 1 month frequency, right? Otherwise, the score is definitely going to drop, right? Are you meeting your revenue goals for the client, right? Those are typical levers on erstwhile the current health scores are maintained. But I think the key thing is the quality of that relationship, right? Which is both at the account level and at the personal level, right? And on the one-on-one or the one-to-many level, all of those parameters are then fed into the health score algorithm, and it's fully configurable by our clients, by the way.
Yeah, I like that. Having that flexibility there is really important. We got a question here. For those leaders who want to start integrating more mindfulness and empathy into their organizational culture, what are 3 actionable steps they can take starting tomorrow?
Okay, so I would say, first of all, once again, to be not to be repetitive, be intentful about it, right? Commit to it and understand that, this needs to happen, not just because it's the word of the year or the word of the day. It's something that is the right thing to do, right? And the second thing is have a bias for action, right? Which means that don't mull over it, do something, take action, and calibrate it later, right? Which means that you can kind of fail forward, if you will, if you're not taking the right steps. And then the third thing is understand that businesses are not just a money machine, right? Their intent and purpose in this world is much more. And for me and for us at Kaboom, it's the pursuit of happiness. Find out what your true north is, and then really double down on it.
Yeah. And last point too, I think that's where I really love seeing AI getting into the mix now, is how we can bring that to have really AI helping coach us, upward, really. I mean, a lot of the concepts that you're talking about here today, these are traits of really next generation businesses, that the higher consciousness businesses. These are traits, one after another, that Ram has talked about here today, that you're going to see coming online a lot more with businesses, and especially as these younger groups get more into the business world. These are kind of things they're going to be looking for from a company.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that, Stephen. The fact that AI is, the genie's out of the bottle. It's not about finding ways to be busier now with it, but, in a way, finding out how we can spend more time now on what is important, right? So to the point of what Kaboom is doing, like emphasizing the relationships that are most important, right? And being able to truly find the time and spend the time, doing that.
And what Kaboom is applied AI, right? We're not creating the AI. We're not OpenAI, or we're not NVIDIA. What we're doing is taking what is available in terms of AI out there, but really applying it to a real human problem and making the lives of humans better, not just generating money, but making the lives of your sales teams and your clients better, because now your relationships are taken to the next level in a very meaningful, measurable, and intentful manner.
Yeah, without a doubt. Ram, so one last question, from my side here. So we talk a lot about connection on this show, and on, it's a constant theme for the Bliss Business Podcast is connection. I'm curious, in your thought, why are we as a society lacking in connection? And what do you think we could do today to perhaps remedy or try to fix that situation?
I think just calibrate who you can meaningfully have a relationship with and understanding that. And I really think that in this age of social media and global outreach, right? Like we can be in 5 different corners of the world and we can speak to anybody in real time. That has almost made us much more distant in many ways, even though we are connected, because all of these are so fleeting and quick interactions. They don't really make that human connection like it would happen in the offline world, right? So to being able to balance that, to be able to balance your digital connections, which could be a much vaster number, to really fostering the people who are closest to you, the people who you can you have meaningful interactions on a regular basis, the people who you can keep in touch with on a regular basis is, in my opinion, the most important set of relationships you have, not just at work and for account management, but also in life, right? And that's where I feel that the human connection problem is headed to, or hopefully it's headed to, and more people are realizing that, because we're just being inundated otherwise with Instagram Reels and YouTube Reels and what have you, right? And we're just scrolling through that endlessly, going through brain rot, and you feel you're connected to something or some topic or some person, but you're really not. Yeah. And being able to calibrate that to something shorter and in a much more human form to our human brain's capacity is what we should all converge on.
Yeah, well said.
Like one of our colleagues we all kind of set monthly goals. And one of his a long time ago that he stuck with was, he had a goal is reach out every other day to someone he's close to, just pick up the phone and I'm just going to connect with them in one small way every day. I thought it was such a beautiful goal just to, really keep a practice of doing that. And yeah, the world needs more of that and maybe a little less of, like you said, looking at the.
And my promise to you with Kaboom exploding, if you will, and the whole world's going to be doing that in a much more meaningful manner.
Mm-hmm.
Ram, before we wrap up, one last thought. What do you say to people who believe love doesn't belong in business?
They're wrong. They're totally wrong, right? We're all humans. There should really be no separation between work and personal life when it comes to your emotional authenticity, if you will. And love is part of those emotions, right? So, you need to be able to express love in just like what you're trying to do with Bliss. You build love into scalable systems, if you will. But if you don't love what you do, you're not going to enjoy that. So you need to love your work. And to love your work, you need to love the people who you work with or the clients who you work with. So I absolutely feel that love is a essential, not just a peripheral, but an essential ingredient for you to enjoy work and business.
It's been a true pleasure having you on the show. You shared a lot today that I think our listeners will appreciate. For everyone tuning in, if you want to learn more about Kaboom and how it can transform your business relationships, be sure to check out their website at kaboom.ai. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, keep building love into your business, and we'll see you on the next Bliss Business Podcast.
Mike and Stephen, thank you again. It was really it was an absolute pleasure being on the podcast here. See you next time.
Thanks, Rick.